Herbert lets it fly. Oh, that's a Charger. Touchdown. Keenan Allen. The H-bomb.
Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Go to Bull fam, it's the director. Chargers fans. What a mess that's been created in Los Angeles, man. Another day, another dollar, another game the Chargers lose within one score in spectacular fashion. It feels like we just lived this. We just danced to this dance with the Miami Dolphins week 1. Spectacular offensive performance. Chargers seemingly have 4, 5, 6 different opportunities to win this game at every turn. At the last second, it is dropped, dropping the hearts and sinking the hearts of Chargers fans around the world. Y'all wonder why Chargers fans are long in the tooth, gray in the beard, stress lines forming early. It's because this is something that we've lived through already so many times. It's the Groundhog Day effect. And funny enough, I saw somebody on, I think it was Bolt Beat, mention that this was the Chargers' 100th game with a one-score margin in the last 10 years. 10 years, man. That's so many games. And at this point, it feels like the Chargers have yet to prove that they're able to shift away and shape a different form of themselves outside of that identity that we've become so used to over the years as Chargers fans. And as much as I would like to say, the Chargers are just, this or that away from, overcoming that stretch of bad luck or whatever, I think a lot has to change in terms of the leadership. Yes, a lot of you are going to say that this team won't change until the Dean Spanos era is over. And I'm not going to argue with you guys there. Obviously, you know my opinion on that. But I just don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. What I do think, however, is that the leadership in terms of coaching is going to come into question yet again this video, of course, with every loss. But honestly, it's a very legitimate question that's continuing to be had, needing to be had, and ultimately might be necessary in order for the Chargers to break this mold. So, should be an interesting one today. We're going to go over it once more. Your therapy session about to begin with the director. Before that, though, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. In these trying times, may I offer you an alternate way to enjoy football in this precious season. Underdog Fantasy, the best fantasy platform on the web. Use code director, match your first deposit up to $100 and still enjoy football even if your team may be struggling. And you newcomers, take advantage of this Josh Allen special tonight for Monday Night Football. Half a yard total, pretty much a grand slam guarantee right there. So before we do get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to like, sub, bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's jump into it. Lights, camera,
action.
Your Chargers versus Lions post-game reports. You know what we called the last one? I think for the game preview, we called it The Hunt. Unfortunately, here for the game post-game report, I think we're going to call it The Hunted. The Chargers have officially been hunted, which really does blow, man. This game, I felt so important for the team. I mentioned so many times that a 5-4 record feels like, man, the season's been saved. We're off on the right track again. Momentum has been gained. We beat a good team twice in a row, which, yes, the Jets were a really good team. Terrible offense, but good team because of just how good that defense is. Coming in and losing to the Lions does really kind of stifle out that flame a little bit, and momentum certainly has been lost, even as we are getting ready to go into town with Green Bay. Try and put up a win versus a team that ultimately this defense should shine against. It doesn't feel real until you can take down a team like the Detroit Lions, which, first off, congratulations to the Lions. I know a lot of people have given this franchise a lot of crap for the past several seasons, and when it comes to teams like this, I can't help but feel a little bit giddy for the fans on the other side of it. Chargers fans, Lions fans, Browns fans, whoever fans you want to say, passionate fans of football deserve their moment in the sun, and you guys definitely deserve it, especially in this week. And, of course, for week 1, amazing game where you guys took down the Chiefs. Either way, congratulations to not Chiefs fans, Lions fans, for your guys' recent success. We hope that continues for you. As for the Chargers, we have a lot of digging to do in terms of our identity and just ultimately solidifying speculation that we've had throughout the season, even leading up to last season. When it comes to the coaching and leadership of this team. The first thing I kind of wanted to go over with you guys that really does stick out to me, and I think it's the elephant in the room when it comes to this matchup, is the defensive collapse. I put on Twitter a sad gif saying, right after the game, that the defense has let us down yet again. And it's a narrative that's really kind of getting old, especially when in games like this, where so much is on the line. You're putting up ridiculous points, ridiculous numbers offensively, and the defense just can't keep up. It feels like there's games where it's the opposite, where the defense is putting up spectacular numbers and the offense can't keep up. This is kind of what it's like to be a Chargers fan lately. If it's not one thing, it's the other. If it's not both, it's whatever. It's always something. And this week it happened to be the defense. And ultimately, it feels like the defense, in a lot of different ways, has been exposed as not as advertised. And I'm not going to say it's on the players at all. I think the players have been doing a fantastic job in executing what's been given to them. And obviously, we've got some of the best talent you're going to find in the NFL with Joey Bosa and Derwin James and Khalil Mack and the rise of guys like Tuli Tuipulotu and, maybe even Kenneth Murray at this point. The fact of the matter is, all of these guys are underperforming. And I think a lot of us can come up with the conclusion of who the culprit might be in this situation. 533 yards do not come easy. Yes, credit must be given to the Detroit Lions, who've been a fantastic offensive team this season. But Brandon Staley, man, dude was brought in to be that defense, to be that guy. It just hasn't showed up. One big thing that I saw, again, I think it may have been Volpe. These guys have been on fire lately. They posted something that was really eye-opening to me. And it kind of set up the table for that. This week, in talking about the Detroit Lions, I talked a lot about don't be intimidated. Look at their strength of schedule. Look at the teams that they faced this season so far. Why they're a 6-2 team coming into this week. And I pointed out that there was a lot of teams on there that were very subpar. A lot of bad offenses, a lot of especially bad quarterbacks. And that led me to believe that, yes, Justin Herbert was going to have a great day, which he ended up doing even though we lost. That the team would be, in a position to score a lot more points than most points have been scored on the Lions all season, which, again, did come true, just didn't result in a win. I think that strength of schedule was very important. And, yes, even though the Chargers didn't win, it's something that you have to take into account. And what these guys had posted was kind of eye-opening for me in terms of Brandon Staley. And the defensive genius title kind of attached to his name, especially in a season where the defense has just been at times downright putrid. And it's the fact that the Chargers, or I should say the Rams in 2020, or I should say 2019, whatever year it was, I think it was 2020, that Brandon Staley had that best defense in the league season with the Rams. Their strength of schedule that year was not great. They faced some of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen in terms of a season-long span. And that's something that I don't know if we looked into good enough when we hired Brandon Staley, at least me as a fan. Of course, I operate a Chargers channel. It's kind of my job to look into stuff like that. It was not great, and it was very eye-opening to me. And it's games like this where it really comes into effect for me. 533 yards. With a defense that probably has some of the most money put in it in the league. I think Brandon Staley's had some of the most freedom to construct this defense in the way that he wants than you'll find throughout the course of the NFL. Very eye-opening to me. The defense collapsed. They're a big reason why, if not the reason why, we lost this game on Sunday. And it's something that should not be allowed to continue under the leadership of a supposed defensive-minded head coach. We're going to circle back to that in just a minute, but we got to set the table a little bit. Till then, let's move on to the next topic. An offense on the rise. Now, there is some good to be taken from this game. I know y'all are probably not ready for that yet, but it does need to be discussed because it could help shape the future, inform the future of what the Chargers should be doing in terms of healing and becoming better and improving. And I think a lot of it does lean on what we've been seeing at times with the offense. Now, just like we set the table with, bad quarterback play, sometimes soft defenses, offenses can overperform. We also have to give proper credit to when a or when a defense is really good and the offense still overperforms. This Lions defense is really good. Matter of fact, at times they're very great, especially in terms of the run. Versus the run, this team's awesome. The Chargers still almost put up 100 yards versus the team on the ground, but it's what they did outside of that, which was very impressive. And that, to me, is a good sign of what this team can become in the future. Despite a huge letdown by the defense, the offense is really starting to get its footing. And that is something that, again, is almost a stark contrast of what we're seeing in leadership on defense. Brandon Staley is in charge of the defense. We all know this. You know, Derek Ansley is, kind of in there too as a footnote. But it's Brandon Staley. It's the reason that he was brought on. On offense, however, the leadership does feel different. The ability to adjust and to really go in there and find a rhythm that works versus a particular team. It feels like it's working finally with Kellen Moore. Sometimes these things take time. It takes a few games. But even though last week, against the Jets, it took some time to get going, they found a way to win despite, which is very impressive. This week, though, I am very impressed with the Chargers putting up, 450-ish yards versus a Detroit Lions offense or defense that's very, very good. We're starting to see utilization of different talents, even in times where we only had, Keenan Allen at one point went down. We had Quinton Johnson in there. The Chargers still kind of found a way to keep that rhythm going. This may help shape the future of the Chargers. What if this team is not meant to be a defensive-minded head coach team? What if it's meant to be an offensive-minded head coach team, like a lot of successful teams in the NFL in terms of their leadership? I don't know. It's really pushing that narrative. We talked about this narrative over and over and over again, but it really does push that narrative into the foreground about Kellen Moore stepping in as interim head coach this season, kind of giving himself a nice little resume for 2024. I'm still about it. I'm more about it after this game. I still think it's the right call. I wonder what it's going to take for the Chargers to maybe make that decision, pick up the phone, and make it happen. But good on the offense, though, man. 38 points versus this defense. Good leadership in terms of Kellen Moore. I know not a lot of people will super agree with that. They'll say, can we all accept the fact that Moore isn't what we thought he was? He is, in a lot of ways. It's just taking him time to get there. And it's games like this and games, kind of scattered throughout the season that's starting to make me understand and believe in what I'm seeing from Kellen Moore and what he's starting to take shape with. Because, yes, he's had to roll with the punches too. But there's games like this where I'm like, wow, it really all came together this week. And it kind of shows me a little window into what could be in a Kellen Moore-led Los Angeles Chargers. We got to move on. I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit long on these different subjects. The next one is about Justin Herbert. In terms of the offense, and speaking of the offense, Justin Herbert, we knew, at least I had an idea about this happening this week. A lot of the times when Justin Herbert has a bad week, like he did last week versus the Jets, under 200 yards, no touchdowns, he turns around and has a fantastic week. This week, 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, yes, an interception. But wasn't it so refreshing to see Justin Herbert back? Our Justin Herbert. The 2020 Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert, best quarterback in NFL history to start their careers. It was refreshing to see that version of Justin Herbert back. And some people do credit that the healing of the finger has a lot to do with it. I think I heard Tony Romo talking about that a lot during the broadcast. Correct me if I'm wrong. But even on a non-throwing hand, it feels like it does play a huge factor. And as he continues to move further apart from that injury, and now it seems that he really is starting to become and shape into that quarterback that we all know and love. And versus, again, this defense, it was a very good thing to see. And that's why I think this team needs to be an offensive or minded and oriented football team. As a number 10. Yeah, we got a lot of talent on defense. We do. I think Derwin James is worth building around. I think Joey Bosa is worth building around. Right? We got a lot of pieces on defense that are worth building around. But ultimately, I think the ultimate success or failure is going to come through number 10 on this team for the next decade. We need to build around him. The identity needs to be around Justin Herbert. I think Herbert deserves a coach like Kellen Moore, or just somebody offensive-minded, or somebody that really understands what to do with the quarterback like that. And right now, we don't really have that. We have the OC, which is definitely a good, step in the right direction. But in terms of leadership and forming an identity, we have a ways to go in that department. We definitely do. And I think the Chargers may be starting to ask these questions of themselves. We may even be on a head coach hunt this upcoming offseason. You never know. And hopefully whoever it is knows how to properly build a team around number 10. It's a very, very important piece of this team's future and success. Next up, speaking of future and success meets past success and legends being created in bolts. The Keenan Allen, man, this man's immortal. What a game for him. 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keenan is not slowing down anytime soon. His contract in terms of longevity is starting to feel very good to me. I know that a lot of people are worried about how much money we're going to be spending next year. I think the Chargers may tack on a couple extra years, try and keep Keenan around, spread that money out a little bit. But I think the Chargers, in terms of a guy that stands out against the pack, that can play into their twilight years at a high level like Larry Fitzgerald, I think we got one in Keenan Allen. He's been absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to see him continue that success with Justin Herbert. Now with the legends come in the new guys. Quinton Johnson, who I'm going to say is not out of the woods yet with me. I think he had a great game this week. Let's see an okay game this week. There's a lot of chances that we saw Quinton Johnson an opportunity to prove that he is what we thought he was when we drafted him in the first round, that he didn't live up to. A lot of drops in clutch situations that would have been a big, big impact to the game. In the end, he does come in clutch, score the touchdown, to keep the Chargers in the game late. Does put up around 40 yards, which is definitely not bad. But we need this guy to turn a corner quick, and I think this week, like we were hoping, could start the movement for that with QJ. Next week versus the Packers might again be stiff competition for him. But it's good to see something beginning to form with QJ. We needed to see it pretty good. No sacks allowed this game, a big part of how this game shaped out. And not just talking about the Lions, but the Chargers as well. This is a really huge part of why we need to kind of continue to ask ourselves, who are we as a football team? Now, good on the Chargers offensive line. I'm going to say that first. Chargers offensive line didn't allow a sack versus this team, which is very good. Aiden Hutchinson, one of my favorite defenders in the league. That's a good accomplishment there. Good for the Chargers. But what's not good for the Chargers is not producing any sacks this week. We came into this game with 31 sacks on the season. We put up a goose egg, which is not great. And ultimately may pay dividends to why this team collapsed so spectacularly. This team needs to produce pressure in order to produce whatever it is they want to produce. That's kind of the whole key foundation to that defense. And when it's not there, we see games like today where 41 points are produced. Or 41 points are produced. That's not great. And that's why I feel like building around the offense might end up being the move. The defense, sure, it's been at times great this season, but it relies very heavily on certain elements that might not be as easy to maintain as a good quarterback would. That's just my 2 cents there. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu. Very well countered versus Detroit this week. They came out with a quick passing game, lots of screens, and it really kept the Chargers away from finding any momentum on defense, which again led to a spectacular score for them and a terrible situation for the Chargers in which we just could not find any footing defensively. The run game, still dormant. We're going to kind of run through these last couple of things kind of quick. Chargers run game is just non-existent this year. It feels like it's something that we have to come to accept with this team, and that Kellen Moore is going to have to group up and reevaluate over the offseason. Like, we have to really focus in on improving the run game next year for Justin Herbert. As of right now, not much you can do about it. Continue to try and supplement it through the pass as much as you can. But until then, we have to kind of go into every week thinking we're not going to get much help on the ground again and again and again. Something that we have to kind of work out. As for the run defense, which has been so good this season, it's completely gone as well when we don't have a pass rush, I kind of feel like. I don't know what it was. I know Khalil Mack was sick to his stomach about it, but it was just gone. I don't know what happened. It should have been one of our strengths this game, and they go off for, 200 yards on the ground. Not to mention like 300 yards through the air to complete an utter defensive collapse this week. It's not good. Not a good look. Not a good look. And again, if that's something that's going to continue, the Chargers really are in hot water. If the run defense does continue to take a nosedive like it did this week. Speaking of nosedives, man. Alohi Gilman, he's had a fantastic season. I would say a fantastic span of like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 games. He's looked really, really good. This game, however, he got exposed pretty hard. Specifically in coverage. There was a lot of plays where Alohi was getting beat, or tackle was broken on Alohi, or he bit on a run and let somebody open behind him, resulting in touchdowns a lot of the time too. Bad game for Alohi Gilman, but he's had enough good games that he's kind of earned my, okay, let's see what happens next week, see how he bounces back from it, because this week definitely was not his week. Staley and the defense officially exposed. We talked a little bit about this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Biggest thing I kind of wanted in this segment was to kind of show you guys and explain that the strength of schedule for the 2020 Rams was not great. We hired Brandon Staley, I think, on a lot of that merit. And it's kind of turning its ugly head at this point versus good teams. Not a good look. Not a good look. And like I've said for a while, I think the team's hopes and dreams definitely lie in what we can produce in the offense creatively. I want to see an offensive-minded head coach take over this team, although I'm not opposed to some options that might bring in some legacy experience. And this is what I want to ask you guys in the comment section in this video. I know this video is a little bit scattered. I'm sorry. We're still getting over a cold. But I wanted to ask you guys about the future of this team. As of right now, if it were up to me, I would tell you guys that I'm handing Kellen Moore the reins and seeing what it looks like for the rest of the season. Because we might have something there. If Kellen takes a season and forms it into, you know, a 9-8 season, a 10-7 season, or even with like an 8-9 season, but the momentum really is there, and we get into the postseason and we find some momentum, like, then you want the Kellen Moore experiment to continue. If not, if it does continue to collapse and it really isn't, you know, what we were hoping it would be, next season there's a lot of options. I do firmly believe Bill Belichick will be available next season. And I do think there's enough connections to the Chargers where you can start making speculations right now. Jim Harbaugh, there's been a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with him. Some people say because of the suspension that he's definitely going to go to the NFL. Some people say he's not going to go to the NFL because of that. Either way, he's definitely a candidate for the Chargers. There's a lot of options out there. But in my opinion, just you got to do something at this point. The hiring of Brandon Staley was, in my opinion, a lot of the reason behind that was because of the success of the 2020 Los Angeles Rams defense, which in my opinion may have been overblown a little bit. And now we're starting to see the repercussions of that as the Chargers continue to lose in spectacular fashion because of the defense versus good teams. It's time to change that narrative. We got to lead behind Justin Herbert. We got to build behind Justin Herbert and find a reason and a way to make Justin Herbert the clear and obvious focal point of this organization, because right now it does not feel that way. Anyway, a lot of words spit this week. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully we're feeling better in the next couple of days, but keep your heads up. Be mad today, bolt up tomorrow, and get excited for the Packers game. If anything, I think we're going to have a good chance versus that team, and we should have a good opportunity to bounce back in that one, get the hype back. But in games like today, and games like the Lions have shown, it really does push forward the important questions for the team, for the fan base, and ultimately the organization. How are they going to adjust? And how are they going to fix the issue in terms of leadership? Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up, stay frosty. And for the love of God, I hope I get over this cold in the next couple of days. It's getting old.